That's
I
where
do need framing.
her business is on. Hopefully we're good, Tommy. Okay.
Where's her frame shop?
Magazine
Where? 3400. That's right down from me.
It's a great place.
All
I think
right.
we're live, Tom.
Okay. All right, Charlie.
It's great to be
All
back
right.
with the class
Yes,
of
indeed.
78.
Well, it's a good day to gather because this is the birthday of Robert E. Lee.
And amazing, and your piece, Tommy, is coming together phenomenally
Yes,
well.
we're moving right along. We finally got some really good photographs of the frontal. We had problems with angles and things because we didn't really have a chance to shoot it the way we could. But in any case, we got the footage, and we were able to take some
It's
pieces of
looking
it.
great. I know, like tomorrow, you're showing it, so it's starting to get some attention. I mean, I'm looking at the detail of his face, the gloves, and I know you're working on the sword.
Yeah, I'm going to do the sword separately, and then I cast it separately, and then mount it onto the piece. I think that's the best way to go with that.
Yeah.
And I've got to work the boots some more, and do a lot of different things on the gloves. But we're getting along.
And it's a cold day. I want you guys to know, if you see us, it's not a typical New Orleans day.
No, it's not.
And we
It's very cold.
It is below 40 in New Orleans right now.
Yeah.
And we did special to honor today as Tommy's getting close. You can see we got a lot of banners up there showing everything that Lee did, because for the most part, it seemed like when the city opted to take the monument down, they didn't know anything about it.
No, they still really don't know anything about it. He's the mystery man. It's amazing. One of the most important and revered personages in our history. No one knows anything about it.
No one knows. And I even
History buffs outside of small circles of Civil War fans. It's just nothing in the history books.
And they keep saying somebody just walked by and said, "Oh, he was never here." But we know he was here several times.
Well, Charlie, I think one of the most important things that you mentioned on this banner, and I think I'd like to call the folks' attention to it, of course we've talked about it in the past, was Robert E. Lee's own opposition to slavery. Because this is really, when everything's said and done, what this argument about these monuments turns on is the conflation of the Confederacy with racism and white supremacy.
So true.
And here is one of the most important figures in the effort in the South, speaking adamantly against slavery. Freed his own slave. Didn't just talk the talk. He walked the walk. He freed his own slaves.
Well, he didn't even own them. He inherited them.
Yes.
They were actually.
His wife's slave. So
his wife.
but he did own it.
And his wife was a descendant of George Washington.
Exactly.
So they came from George Washington to him. Yeah, you're so right. But Tommy, I'd say one thing I found out about Lee in just the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
His principles were Virginia had actually voted not to succeed in early April. And it wasn't until Lincoln said, "I'm going to invade South Carolina by going through Virginia and North Carolina."
Yeah.
Those four states, North Carolina, Virginia, Arkansas, and Tennessee, switched their votes because they opposed the idea that a president could send troops.
That's right.
So Lincoln's Lee, his real principle was the president was only 6 weeks in the office, didn't really understand the Constitution.
No, he really didn't understand the Constitution. I mean, what we now understand, I think that talking about the Civil War is the whole notion of what the Civil War really was about. The Civil War was an action on the part of a group of states against other group of states.
Absolutely.
And the sovereignty of those states was always tantamount and the most important principle going into the Constitution. And that was completely overridden. That was trampled. And now we're seeing the consequences of that.
And Lee, we found the story. He actually got interviewed by a guy from Britain, a historian, months after the war, like November of '85, and he pointed out, and I researched it, and it was accurate. In 1832, Virginia was starting to figure out how to create a gradual emancipation.
Wow.
So this movement had started. Lee talks about that, and he says, had we been left alone, let us as a state figure out, because the North didn't come in and say, oh, we're going to give you job training, we're going to give you social programs, we're going to do all this. They just one day said we want to fight South Carolina.
Yeah, it's a brutal act. I don't really understand why there was the rush, because after all, you're talking about an institution had been there since God only knows, right? Since the beginning of human beings. The recording of history, slavery had always been around.
Absolutely.
And you'd be hard pressed to find a society where slavery was condemned. Until what, 1806, when
Right.
England finally outlawed it.
England and America then said no importing. France stepped in.
Yeah.
But you're right, and pressure was being put on the rest of America. A few
Right.
states had outlawed it.
Right.
But the other states were like, hey, you're dealing with England. England's saying, we don't like this anymore.
Yes,
and they were the leader of the world,
Yeah.
France as
Yeah.
well. So you could see that movement was happening.
Yeah.
And these other states were having to figure out, how are we going to transition?
Yeah.
It wasn't like, and what Lee wrote 4 years earlier was, we got to get this done.
Yeah.
But a war, to do it in a forceful way, is going to cause problems.
And of course, for the African American community, the black community in the country, the war was a devastation. The war was a wash, because what it ended up happening is it threw them into greater poverty, greater isolation. The whole segregationist movement fell out of that. It was a disaster.
It was
Unmitigated disaster.
And then Jim Crow. You know, and it was almost like Lee said, if you do it the way you're doing it,
Yeah.
you're going to have Jim Crow. He didn't
Right.
know the words. He described the situation. Tommy, I do want to say, this week, 2 days ago, we got a victory.
Yeah.
Mayor Bill de Blasio had actually come down to New Orleans right after Mitch got done taking down the monuments,
Yeah.
met with Mitch,
Yeah.
went back to New York and says he's going to take down evil monuments.
Yeah.
But he did it differently. They surveyed the residents of the town, 3,000.
Yeah.
He formed a committee that wasn't just his appointees.
Yeah.
And then they decided to leave the monuments up. And they put plaques on them, which is what had been suggested for New Orleans.
Yeah, I heard that there was a town in Italy that would want to take down a Mussolini plaque, and what the Italians decided instead was put up some sort of a explaining, informative material to explain the presence of the Mussolini plaque, so that they could preserve the art. And I think that that's a very sensible way of approaching this, because after all, history is very fluid, opinions can be very fluid, and what can be offensive today is not offensive tomorrow.
Exactly.
And this whole idea of being offended by art is an iffy thing from the get-go, because after all, there are many different ways of looking at a piece of art. And art is not all accepting, and it's not all offensive. There's something to dislike in a piece of art, and there's always something to find to like in a piece of
The
art.
argument I found, and maybe this was true maybe in some cities like Richmond, but not in New Orleans.
Yeah.
They put up a statue of Lee in Richmond during the middle of Jim Crow, and there was an era in the 20s
Yeah.
where the KKK was strong.
Yeah.
But I don't know, I've never read anything that says that they had an influence. But here, this statue was put up to get ready for the World's Fair of 1884.
Right. That was way
There's
before.
No connection.
No connection. Hey, well, the KKK really gained momentum later.
Yes.
I mean, I would not say that there was not a KK
Right.
in 1884, but the point is, it was not very powerful, not
Right.
very strong. That was much later. But the point is that the KKK and the whole white supremacist movement had really nothing to do with this statue and the
Right.
erecting of this statue. It's very clear when you read the speech that was given at the inauguration of the statue. There was no mention whatsoever of white supremacy or slavery. Those issues were not
Valor.
and the question is, why would they?
Right.
If these issues were important to them, why wouldn't they mention them? In 1884,
And-
what were they scared
And
of?
it went on for 2 hours. The speech.
Of course.
It went on forever.
What he did was he talked about Robert E. Lee.
Yeah, he did.
He talked about the great admiration that folks have for Robert E. Lee. Folks north and south came down to enjoy that inauguration ceremony.
Tommy, I want to give you a Robert E. Lee
All right.
cookie.
Oh, I love it.
We had one
These
of our
are
supporters.
wonderful.
We got fleur-de-lis,
Yeah.
regular fleur-de-lis, and this says Lee Circle. That's
Yeah.
a symbol for a circle. So we got stars because Lee had stars as a general.
Yes, he
But
did.
we,
Many stars.
Many stars.
Yeah.
So we want to thank, we've made a lot of progress.
Yes.
Thanks to you. We're at 6,000 signatures. We're trying to get to
Not
10.
to me. No. I don't think I want to take credit for the signature, but I would like to think that I had some small hand in promoting this idea.
You have done great.
And pushing forward the notion that freedom of thought, freedom of expression, freedom to make up your own mind is the most important values we have. And when we let go of those values, when we allow a small group of politicians, a small group of intellectuals or leaders to make up our minds for us, then we've lost everything that these founding fathers fought and died for. It just takes your breath away. At what cost? My goodness. So expunging history, expunging art, for what? For what end?
Great. Tommy, I'm going to walk up. You can join me if you want. on, or
Yes.
if not, I'm going to take the camera. I want to get a close up of this banners that we
Okay,
have.
great
And
idea, Charles.
You want to, okay? You're welcome to follow, or, lead or whatever.
Okay, I'll lead you.
All right. So, this is what interpretive plaques could have been done.
Yes.
I mean, this is kind of, not the
They
professional.
could have told the story of the Civil War.
Yes.
I mean, for these kids coming up today, they know nothing about it. They don't even know what year was fought. So, I mean, my goodness, the commemorative plaques would be very helpful, and a lot of them, because this is the only way these kids are going to get exposure to history. They're not going to learn it in school.
No, they're not. And that's why these monuments were actually put up to begin with.
Yeah.
Because
exactly.
they weren't.
It provokes a conversation. Mitch made this statement. Well, what do you tell the children? Well, Mitch, how about this history of the city? How about tell the kids what happened? Tell them about the Civil War. Tell them about slavery. Tell them about segregation. Tell the whole story. My goodness, this is an opportunity. When you have a beautiful statue, you have an opportunity for a dialogue. I mean, the question is, how do you bring things like that up when you have nothing to stimulate the conversation in the first place?
This man's life, if you want to talk, like Eisenhower, and the World War II Museum is right there.
Right.
But Eisenhower wrote a letter and said he was one of the great men, 10 great men in America of all time.
Yeah.
Because, what he did was his plan of the Mexican-American War, the Mississippi River. I mean, everything else this man did was just amazing in his lifetime. And then going back, which is, I guess, a good word to bring up now, is his dad gave the eulogy to George Washington. And he said George Washington was first in war, first in peace, first in the hearts of his country. So think about the legacy. Lee did not want to bust up the Union.
No, he did not.
But he clearly
he
saw...
served in the U.S. Army for, 30 years?
Yes.
I mean, it's preposterous.
So this is a part of what could have been done. And the thing I do think is important is we are right now in Human Trafficking Awareness Month.
Right. That's very nice, Charlie. I'm glad you're drawing attention to that.
And Lee opposed slavery.
Absolutely.
And we could have...
And we still
leveraged
have
it.
slavery today.
We do.
And that's the thing that's tragic. Here we are talking about monuments, and we need to be talking about a lot of things that are going on in this town right now. Human trafficking it's just horrible.
It's unbelievable.
It's horrible.
I mean, it is... they've actually finally formed a city council committee, but they camouflage it. They call it youth programs.
Yeah.
But when you read what they're talking about, they know that they don't want to send these girls to jail.
Right.
So what do? So it's a massive situation right now to address.
Right.
Well,
Okay, Charlie.
I think we're good.
Okay, good. Good job.